Hello, so we're with Dolores from Carlsbad, who I've barely known, but I've met because she's wearing the bangle for the last 3 weeks. And she's been another individual we've come across who has noticed a big difference with it shifting her depression quite dramatically. She's got a great story. And without further ado, I'd like Dolores to tell her story.
Thank you. So, my husband brought this bangle home about a month ago and asked if I wanted to try it, and I put it on. I've been suffering with depression for about 10 years, and I've had migraine headaches for about 25 years. And not a day goes by that I don't have a headache. But I put this bangle on, and about a half an hour later, my husband and I went out to breakfast. And we're sitting at the table, and I'm just feeling really dizzy and kind of queasy and not really with it, like something was going on with me. And I'm looking at the menu, and I see all the words there, and I know what they are, but something was going on where I couldn't concentrate. And so I told my husband, you have to order from me. He ordered food for me, and then I started thinking, well, I better take this bangle off if it's affecting me that way, you know? So I took the bangle off, and a few minutes later I thought, there's a voice that came to me that said, put it back on. So I put it back on. And I would say about 2 hours later, the headache I had went away, and my depression started lifting. And I just started feeling better. And after about 3 or 4 days, my depression was almost completely gone.
So you had depression permanently all the time?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you didn't have it wasn't a pendulum swing, it was permanent depression. Permanent depression. And before you put on the bangle, you mentioned a 10-year period. I mean, did you have periods of time where you felt great, or was it consistently suffering from depression, or what was the pattern?
No, it was consistently just bad. And I think the depression started because I had so many headaches.
Migraines, yeah.
You know, it just...
So for 10 years you've been suffering from depression. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I just say that because it's hard for me to comprehend that there are people walking around. I mean, I met you and you smiled when we passed on in the gardens, and I thought, well, that's Jerry's wife and she looks normal, Right. I'm not saying that people who suffer from depression isn't normal, but you've got to empathise with them, and you're not even aware that there are so many people walking around with that ailment.
Exactly.
So,
it's you have to go on with your life. I mean,
yeah.
You have to go to work every day. You have to, put on a face, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Like an actor on the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So, I've been wearing the bangle for about 3 weeks now, and I just overall feel better. The depression is gone.
Now, you say after 4 days you noticed it kind of lift, as it were, vaporize or whatever, dissipate, where you don't feel depressed anymore after 4 days, or was it still lingering?
It was still lingering, but and I can't say when it happened, but I would say about a week afterwards. I just noticed one day, I felt more, just conscious of what was going on around me, like a weight had been lifted. Mm-hmm. Just, I don't know, just...
You mentioned the term, when we talked earlier, like the lights came on.
Exactly.
And I thought that was kind of like quite a dramatic statement. And now, of course, in the 3-4 weeks you've been wearing it, any headaches? Migraines?
I've had a few headaches, but they've lessened. I used to be at a 2 every day. Mm-hmm. I'd have a migraine in the background every single day.
All day long?
Every day, 365 days a year.
24/7?
Never went away.
Wow.
And then when the headache would manifest, I would have it for 5-6 days straight. you know, where, you know, I'd have to go to bed, no lights, no sound, no smells, horrible. I'd have to go in and get shots.
You get injections for the headache?
I would, because my medicine sometimes wouldn't work.
Wow, wow. What medicines are you taking?
Maxalt.
Maxalt, yeah. I say that like I know what it is, but you know.
Yeah, well, it's a migraine medicine, and you only get 9 pills a month, so,
right.
you know, sometimes I just wouldn't have enough medicine and I would have to go and get a shot.
Gosh, okay.
So, but now, I wouldn't say my headaches are completely gone, because I still get them once in a while, but they're much less often. So I'll be interested to see, you know.
What the long-term pattern develops.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
So will I be, by the way.
Yes.
Very much so. We might have you back to tell about that second story, or be Dolores too, you know, or something like that.
Right, right.
Gosh. Well, that's, I mean, you must be enjoying life more, obviously. I mean, to have your work neighbours noticed any difference? Or have you,
Well,
you know, I guess you act the same. I mean, before you were acting and now you're not acting. Is that the difference?
That's part of the difference, but also now I have more of a life, because, you know, especially with the headache part, you know, not just the depression is being lifted, but my headaches are being lifted, and socially, when you have a headache, you don't go out as much, you don't interact with people as much.
Of course.
You know,
it's not pleasant.
It's not.
Yeah.
And so now I actually, you know, feel more free to do things that I really couldn't do before because it was debilitating.
Right. Well, I'm so thankful that, it's funny, other people have said they heard this voice too. It's very bizarre. I'm really thankful that you did heed that inner voice, as it were, and have an open mind enough to go, okay, no, let's just see what this is. I've got a fun term for it. I call it the vortex. Where, you're going through the vortex, like I know what I'm talking about, you know. But there's a commonality where these people start feeling, who are wearing the bangle, especially the people who've been suffering from depression, wearing the bangle, start feeling disorientated. Start feeling that there's a shift, and I consider it the integration process, where you're going from one set of frequencies to another, and the journey from A to B is unknown territory. And it's confusing. And I'm hoping that those people that go through it will recognize it for what it is. I've written an essay on the website about it, saying, for goodness sake, if you're going through this, if you're at work or you're driving or whatever, well, sure, take the bangle off. But if you're at home in the garden and it's the weekend, keep it on. You know, or if it's the evening and you're not doing anything requiring responsibility, keep it on. You know, because there's an integration process going on. It's what I consider my observation to be with it. And what you're talking about is turning out to be a classic example of that. And I'm not saying as if I have a massive extensive experience, but there is a commonality developing. And that's really something.
And I would imagine it's probably different for each person as far as how long that process takes, where you're in that vortex, right? I
think you're absolutely right, and I think part of that is, you know, we've all got different forms of metabolism, and we've all got different body weights, and sometimes I put a too small a bangle on a bigger body, and it hasn't been enough of a shift, and perhaps the process has started, but it never got to be, as it were. And it's very much a learning experiential observation at the moment, where I'm studying testimonial feedback. And you know, you're absolutely right. I wish there was a little book I could refer to that go, oh, look, in the glossary it says here, if you're feeling you can't read the menu,
right.
It's because you're not hungry. I mean, no, it's because, you know, etc. But I've had such a dramatic, I've witnessed such a dramatic success rate with people like yourself, who I had no idea had been suffering from depression.
Right.
I was going to say suppression, I think, but depression. And that's what's amazed me, is we don't share each other's lives. We really don't know what our neighbour's going through. We're really clueless about the, you know, challenges other people have. I mean, it shocks me when I drive over the bridge on the freeway at 7 o'clock in the morning and I see all these people going to work. I go, man, these people go to work this early and They drive, they commute for an hour, and you know, you realise it's a whole, because I don't do that, I work from home, it's a shock to my system when I see that sacrifice people make in their, you know, make-do lives. But back to you, and how have you been, say, this week with it? Have you had any migraines this week?
I haven't had any migraines this week, no.
Have you had a mild headache this week?
No.
Have you... When was the last time you felt what you would call a mood or a depressed state or anything?
I would say probably 2 or 3 weeks ago.
But at the same time...
As far as depression...
Right.
You know, I still come across, you know, feelings of, you know, moods of anger and, you know, frustration and things like that, but they're different now. Right. It's like there's been some kind of a...
Well, we all had that, by the way.
Yeah, I know. But,
well, I mean, some of us.
But, yeah, of course you don't. But, but you know, it's different in how I'm handling it.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to be more of an inward kind of processing type thing, whereas now I'm able to express myself in a better way. I'm just
much
more
less
normal,
reactive.
I guess. I'm more normal.
Well, that's profound. I mean, and you're also judiciously, carefully, cautiously saying, I'm not saying it's over yet, but I'm seeing a trend, and I'm just wait and see mode. I mean, that's basically what you're expressing that I'm hearing. So it could be that it just keeps getting better, but you're not sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you know, and there even was a period where, not by choice, my husband decided he wanted to try this Bangle for a couple of days.
Take it off you?
Yeah.
The rogue.
I know.
Okay. Who is this man?
So, you know, but of course I want him to feel better too, so I didn't say anything to him. Of course I didn't want to give it up, but I did. And so for a couple of days I did not have the Bangle on. And during that time, I got a headache.
Wow.
I didn't feel good. I started to feel depressed again. And I thought, give me that Bangle back.
Now, had you decided by then, before he took it, that the Bangle was definitely creating a solution? Or
I wasn't sure yet.
Because if you had decided that, some people say it's psychosomatic or it's pathogenic.
Yeah, I know. I kind of thought that. I thought, you know, because when he first gave me the Bangle, I thought, oh, come on, this thing isn't going to do anything. You know.
Have you been to Disneyland? Where do you get...
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's not going to do anything. And then when it affected me the way it did and it helped, I thought, you know, when he took it back, I'm thinking, well, maybe that was in my mind. You know, maybe it really didn't happen. But when he took it back, and I didn't have it, and I went back to the state I was in prior, then I knew it was real.
That's fantastic. That's black and white. That's really... That's... I mean, I love that kind of testimonial, you know, and there's such a thrill when I hear that story, because Karen and I have been involved with this, and it's like, we're in disbelief. We're, you know, I know that the atoms have electronic features that man doesn't understand. We know that the quantum physicists relate to all matter, being our body, as being electromagnetic waves. And of course there's a magnetic vortex and there's a light-catching vortex, and so it looks, and it's locked in a pattern. So this stuff looks solid, but it's just a magnetic vortex. And I know that in the future healing will be primarily through rays, because chemicals can't penetrate the atom. You know, great minds have said that's not me, and it's obviously the case. And what we're dealing with here is something that is influencing your frequencies, your resonance, and your consciousness has a very defined frequency resonance. And somehow there's a shift going on, and it's affecting your well-being. And I'm not going to go into it because a lot of it is suppositional theory, but nonetheless the evidence is by having a lot of people say, hey, I'm feeling this, and there's a commonality to it. And what you just said with thinking it's pretty ridiculous when Jerry gave it to you to wear, which is, I think, a completely normal reaction. I mean, look at it.
Yeah, I mean, especially
look at it. Can you see
this
lady?
Big, gaudy thing. I mean,
exactly. You know, exactly.
You know, but now I don't care. I mean, I think
yeah.
it's, you know, it's big, but, you know, I don't care because it helps me.
Right. And I wish I could make them tiny, and I've experimented with these different electronic gizmos that claim to give well-being, and my observation has been that they don't seem to work. And my hands are tied with the size of them working. There's a definite shift that goes on. I mean, it takes a certain force to move a force.
Sure.
And but that's really amazing that after 5 days, Jerry taking it back and then giving it back after 2 days. And I'm trying to think if there's any more questions I can ask you. You've filled it out pretty well, your experience. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I don't think so. No.
I've got a feeling you're going to be wearing it for a while now, huh?
I am. I've been called Wonder Woman. And
yeah?
Yeah, Superwoman.
Well, you probably like that part. You should go to work in a cape, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose people, because you haven't had time to really explain to your associates what it does, you work with, you know, you're a CPA, you work with a lot of CPAs, they probably just think it's pretty strange.
Well, you know, it's interesting because at my job, everybody pretty much knows if my lights are off in my office, I have a headache.
Right.
And lately my lights have been on. And so, of course, they notice this.
Right.
And so, what's that?
Yeah.
I said, well, it's helping with my headaches.
Right. Now you're taking a lot less medication or no medication last week? Or
I'm not taking any of my migraine medicine.
Right. Okay.
And in fact, I was taking some supplements, 5-HTP, which is a form of tryptophan for my depression.
Right.
Because the normal medicines never really helped me.
Right, yeah, that's one of the smarter ones, definitely.
And I haven't taken any of those supplements. I don't have a need to.
Amazing. And we're having other people too, and I'm not advocating, of course, people stop their medications.
Right.
It's always a personal decision. It's always only they can observe their best journey. But the cost of medications, not to mention the environmental impact of them, you know, is warm to anyone's hearts that they don't get used. I mean, Americans are a pill-popping culture based on the pharmaceutical model beyond my English-Australian background that just shocks me, you know, just stuns me, because I've always been brought up to believe that, you know, pills damage the kidneys and weaken the brain function and everything else, and they're not you know, they create further problems down the line. So that's really endearing to hear that. And Karen and I hope that will be a continuing testimonial response. But it's wonderful to hear. And call me up if you ever get a relapse or anything like that. I personally don't think it's going to happen, but we would like to know, you know, and we won't hide that from this testimonial process on meditationbangles.com. We want the truth to be told. We're not trying to sell something, we're trying to be scientific, we're trying to help others with truth, and it's very hard to convey to people something that's completely out of the cultural paradigm. I've been studying the remedial effects of gemstones for 25 years full time, and I've been ostracized and ridiculed and belittled consistently by people who I love to have as friends, people who are great people, but they're trained in a completely different material paradigm. And they're still my friends, but they just don't respect what I do.
Right.
And you know,
that's a shame.
But I understand that. I'm a little bit strange, let's put it that way, in pursuing doggedly this particular.
Well, I'm glad you've been strange in pursuing it, because if you hadn't,
well, I'm overjoyed to witness your testimonial. I mean, it's Karen and I are just like. We have, you know, I think when the hairs stand up in your arms, I don't have many hairs, but when they're there, they stand up, you know. It's, my stubble stands up pretty good there. But anyway, it's really, really, really profound for us. And I really thank you for coming in and, you know, bearing your personal life to us. And I know your intention is just to help others too.
I want others to be benefited from that.
Great. So, have I missed out anything?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I think we covered it all.
Okay. So Dolores from Carlsbad, a real person. And thank you so much. So we were just chatting after we did the first recording with Dolores, and she suddenly said, "There's something I have to say. I didn't realise I forgot to say it." So we're just adding this little snippet. Dolores?
I was just saying that I felt a lot more energy.
Mm-hmm.
So much more energy that at nighttime I couldn't sleep, and I thought, is it the bangle that's doing that? And sure enough, I took the bangle off, and then I was able to fall asleep. Well, now I can actually sleep with the bangle on.
Right.
But initially, I had so much more energy that I couldn't sleep at night.
What you're saying I've heard many times, and my personal anecdotal experience was when I first made this bangle about 1.5 years ago, and I was experimenting with myself before I was able to get them made on a larger scale. For a couple of years previously, I've been bemoaning. I generally get up in the middle of the night, go to the restroom, and I would be unhappy that my mental clarity wasn't good enough to focus and concentrate so I could have a mid sort of night meditation. Because I was awake, but I couldn't really, my mind wasn't clear enough and strong enough to do the techniques properly. And I found that when I was wearing the meditation bangle, I would, rather than go back to bed, it might be 2, 3 o'clock, I'd sit in the chair and I'd do maybe a 45-minute meditation and then come back to bed after that, and I'd have a good meditation. It wouldn't be like a sleepitation, it'd be a little bit focused. And that was part of the recipe for why I called it the meditation bangles, because I had less sleep, but I didn't wake up tired. I felt more mental clarity when I woke up, and a lot of other people have emailed me and I've spoken with on the phone and said exactly that same thing. I can't sleep when I'm wearing the bangle at the beginning, but they're not saying they're waking up tired. They're saying they still feel fine. It's like I don't need more sleep. In fact, a lot of people reported that they've gone from 8 hours of sleep to 6 hours, or 7.5 to 6, or 9 to 7, or something like that. And what you're saying is really definitely part of the trend line of testimonial feedback.
Right.
And so you're not imagining this stuff.
Well, I look forward to it continuing to benefit me in that way.
Yeah, I would love to not sleep personally. It's life's precious, and I sleep too much. But it definitely, it's not even really about how much sleep we need. It's how much mental clarity we have as a result of having rested properly for the following day. And that's a very big thing. A lot of people who don't suffer from depression, who've worn the bangle, have said that they feel far more mental clarity, better concentration, and more energy. And if I had to put a very limited, summarized feedback sentence, that would be it. Energy, less sleep, and more mental clarity. And that's kind of, we thought about calling it the energy bangle, and do we call it this, do we call that, because we're getting so many of that kind of feedback. And but what you're saying is completely normal, yeah. But so I had the same thing, but after about 2 or 3 nights it settled down and I slept normally after that. I just had more mental clarity when I woke up in the middle of the night. Was that your pattern?
Well, for me, I just would always take it off at night because it had affected me in that way. Mm-hmm. But then when I mentioned it to you, you had mentioned, go ahead and try it through the night and see what happens.
Yeah, go through it. Yeah.
And I was able to do that, and now I'm able to sleep with it on without a problem. I
do believe it's beneficial to wear it sleeping. You're still strengthening your body's pattern of getting used to those frequencies. If after you've been wearing it for a couple of months and you take it off, it'll be like wearing it for a while. You won't actually slip back. Your body will get used to resonating at the level that the bangle's been giving you.
I see.
And it's like your computer's been programmed somewhat. You won't be so dependent on it. I think after a period of time of not wearing it, that'll lessen, and you may relapse if inherent patterns are really strong. I can't speak on that subject authoritatively, but that's my supposition. And that's why I like people to keep it on and go through the not sleeping thing. But at the beginning, when they're a little disorientated, unsure, but I understand totally. It's better not to push too hard. But after you've got your comfort zone, if it's comfortable to wear, then I do believe in keeping it on. Definitely.
Okay.
And that's it from Dolores in Carlsbad.
Thanks so much, Dolores.
Thank you.